Hi, everybody. This is Janet Belsky, and I'm on to episode 2 of the growing up part of my lifespan lecture series. And today we are going to talk about childhood, and you'll learn everything you want to know, particularly about young children. Exactly, how do we divide childhood? And we divide it into 2 phases. We're going to talk about each phase separately. First, we have early childhood. That's preschool, ages 3 to 6, before you really enter full school. And then we have elementary school, which is really ages 7 to 12 before you enter puberty. This is about girl's about 4 years old, and notice how she's trying so hard to catch that water. She got kind of bored and she's going to move on. Then we have a set of girls, probably about 10, practicing. They're so good physically and they can go for hours. They are so interested in succeeding at their skill, which is dancing, and they're beautifully competent physically. That's a metaphor for some of the things we're going to be talking about right now. What's the mission of early childhood? Well, one of them is you are desperate to test your skills. So for instance, we see this little girl, she's scooping this stuff out of the sand out. She's trying to put it in the pail, and she's doing a little collaborating with the guy here. You certainly couldn't do that at age 2 or 3. So you're beginning to really focus on testing your skills in the world. In order to do that, you have to develop a sense of self-control. I have to scoop it up like this. I have to put it in like this. I have to learn how to control myself. And of course, learning how to control yourself is really the essence of being human. So we're really entering the real guts of being human in early childhood, the idea you have to learn to control yourself. But still, your thinking is very weird. And now we're going to go into some of the types of thinking that make early childhood very, very different. And the person who's going to guide us is a man named Piaget. He was the first person to say, let me look at children, see if I can decode exactly the way they think and the way they're thinking, particularly before they reach elementary school. And the classic Piaget task is called a conservation task, is substances.
Of juice. Now we're going to pour this juice into this glass. Do you think that this glass has more juice? This glass has more juice, or do you think that they have the same amount? This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more? Because it's smaller.
That is a metaphor. If something looks bigger, even if you just poured from the same amount, you're in 3 or 4-year-old, you're going to say, wow, that's now it got bigger. Let's explore the implications of some of that strange kind of thinking. It's very different than the way we think. If something looks bigger, it equals more. So here we have 2 preschool girls, and let's imagine that, for instance, this was actually had the same amount, but it looked a little bit different. They're going to get angry at each other. You got more than me. Or you cut a cookie in half and you give one whole cookie and one whole cookie cut into pieces, and the kid is going to say, he has more than me. Why? Because it looks like it's more. You have a nickel and a dime. Sure, the nickel has to be worth more because it's bigger. Just the way something physically looks is the way it is in preschool, because they can't go beyond to think. This is something that I saw with my son. We would go in, let's say we lived in Tennessee, and we would go and I'd say, now we're home, we're in Tennessee, we're driving. And he'd say, but Mommy, you told me we lived in Nashville. And I'd say, well, we live in Nashville and Tennessee. They don't understand the concept of a category. And the bottom line is they can't go to think symbolically at all, which is what we learn once we get to be about 6 or 7. We get that idea together. In order to understand math, you have to think symbolically. You have to go beyond the way something physically looks. And not only that, you believe that you are really the center of the universe, because you can't step back and say other people have different perspectives. That's called egocentrism, which doesn't mean being vain, but what it really means is an inability to see that other people have different ideas. So tell me what happened in preschool. So I don't know if you ever talk to a 3 or 4-year-old, notice they talk about the teacher as if you were there. They don't feel any need to explain something to you. It's almost like they don't understand you're a different person in your head than they are. That's egocentrism. Part of it is also they don't understand that they're just one person in the world. So you'll say, well, tell me about yourself. I'm the smartest person in the world. We think that's adorable, don't we, in preschoolers? But suppose an adult said that, even if they felt that they were very smart, we would say, are you crazy? Egocentrism is a preschool property, and you're supposed to let go of that as you get a little older. Because they can't go beyond the way something appears, preschoolers feel that if you change the way you look, you really change into a different person. So you put on a clown hat, and if you're an older sibling, you can chase that 3-year-old around, and they feel, my brother really turned into a clown. It's Halloween, and he goes to the door, and they say, there's a skeleton at the door, Mommy. Part of the idea that if you look different, you are different. If you look like a person or an animal, it's alive. So you go to the museum with your preschooler, and the kid gets a nightmare because he says, that dinosaur, that monster is going to come alive and it's going to get me. They don't understand what's alive and what isn't alive. And it leads to some fears in preschool that we really don't have when we get older. 4 and 5 are the peak ages to go to the Magic Kingdom. They believe in Mickey. We believe in Santa Claus. When did you stop believing in Santa Claus? That was probably about 6 or 7, isn't it? Should be, because that's when you grow up mentally and you say Santa Claus doesn't exist or the Tooth Fairy doesn't exist. But at 4, you really, really believe. I remember believing in all that stuff. And it was wonderful. There's such a thing as a tooth fairy. There's such a thing as Santa Claus, but it has a downside because you believe in monsters too. Back to Halloween. Halloween, it has a very important teaching function. You have to get dressed up. And so, I look like a clown, but I'm not really a clown. Or I look like a skeleton, but I'm not really a skeleton. It's teaching you to sort out what's real and what isn't real. Now, I love the candy and I love the dressing up. And when I was younger, but the reality is I was learning an important lesson about what's real and what isn't real. Bottom line, preschoolers, especially when you're 3, can't go beyond the way something looks. And they can't really, with talking about egocentrism, understand we live in different minds. So understanding other minds is actually the defining human skill, because it allows us to collaborate and talk to each other. And that's why we took off as a species. And we went from the horse and buggy to the Model T, a whole collaboration. And then, of course, to the Tesla, doing this thing called ChatGPT, which, it's kind of an ambivalent thing from my point of view. But the reality is every technological advance had to do with the fact that we uniquely human happens around age 4, that typically kids learn this idea. Okay, so step 1, you and your preschool child and your friend Joyce are in the room and you put a toy under the bed. Okay, so this is step 2. Joyce leaves the room and you hide the toy in your desk. And then you ask your child, where will Joyce look for the toy when she comes back? So if the child has theory of mind, they're going to point to the bed because they know Joyce was out of the room and she's not in your head. That's a huge advance in understanding that what's in your head is not in everybody else's head. Lying? Oh, absolutely. All of a sudden, around age 4, a kid lies. Now, the difference is they know they're lying. So they have a little smile on their face. Oh, Mommy, I didn't do that, with a little smile, knowing that Mommy is not in their head and Mommy can't know that they did something bad. The child can have a real conversation. What happened today? And then they'll ask you, what happened to you today? Back and forth depends on having theory of mind. And a child pretends with other kids. So why do kids pretend all the time? Now, when I was young, I remember pretending. Boy, I pretended till I was 8 or 9. I spent hours pretending that I was king of the hill. That's one of the reasons we pretend, is it allows us to be important. It allows us to cope with stress. But here's another reason that's really important that we pretend, and that is it allows us to connect with other people as we're pretending with them. Here are some facts. Begins around age 2 when children begin to speak. Mommy, I'm on the phone. Oh, hi, sweetheart, I'm here too. And then when they get together with, quote, friends, they pretend with each other. It reaches a peak, interestingly, just when kids have theory of mind around 4 or 5. They pretend for hours. So you'll put your kid in the room with a friend and they can actually make up little Steven Spielberg scenarios where they build on each other. I was just in a preschool and we were pretending, and we started out. They said, "You be a monster, Miss Belsky." And I said, "Okay." But then wait a second, the monster had babies. And so they decided to be little babies. And then they said, "Well, wait a second. Now I'm going to be a mommy and daddy." And all of us were going around. We were having a wonderful time pretending, enjoying it. And we were actually collaborating with each other, learning from each other. And that's this essence of having a social relationship. That's the way social relationships really start. They start with pretending. So what are the goals of preschool? Teaching us to connect to other minds, teaching us that you are one person in your head and there are people in other heads, teaching you to control yourself. You have to sit still, you have to listen to the teacher, you have to get in a group, and you can't do exactly what you wanted to do. Learning how to control yourself. And teaching that life has rules and you have to follow them. Not teaching academics. Academics comes when you can go beyond the way something looks and symbolize, think in symbols. You need that for math and everything else. So here we have, maybe 3 or 4-year-olds getting together and looking with the teacher, and maybe one of them wants to run around the room, but they don't. They want to talk to each other, and the teacher says, "Well, wait, let's all get together and we have to all listen." Very important skills, the bedrock of learning about human life. Preschool is our crucible for understanding the demands of adulthood. So now we're into elementary school, and there's a difference, a real difference, because now you can go beyond the way things look and you can really think in terms of symbols. And the Jesuits called it the age of reason, because you're really able to reason for the first time in your life. And Piaget said, elementary school, you're almost like an adult in the way that you think. So here are 2 girls, and they're going to understand about this globe. They're going to understand that those are different countries. And even though I can't go through the countries, a symbol stands for where they are. And one girl might say, "Oh, I went here," or "I went here." And they really grasp that that globe symbolizes the world. Very, very important is that you're able to do rules. This guy is talking about how you play this game, and he's explaining it to these kids. You would never be able to learn about sports in preschool because you don't understand the concept of a rule. Everybody has to, be on the field at the same time. Preschool is a wander right off the field. The other thing is that this guy is saying to these kids, well, now you have to practice. You have to do this. You can't really do that in preschool. In elementary school, kids really get into the idea that hard work and practice, even when you don't want to do it, is really what leads to success. Erik Erikson said the issue in elementary school is what he called industry. And you have to learn that in order to get what you want in the world, you have to work for it. So what are some of the passions? Well, one of them, because you know about categories, is you collect things and you put them into different things. These are the Tyrannosauruses, collecting dinosaurs. These are Brontosauruses. And when I was young, it was things like baseball cards. But categorizing is very important in elementary school. And unfortunately, things and people we categorize. You're in about 3rd grade and you go to school, and all of a sudden you understand, I'm not the smartest kid in the class. This kid here is smart, and this kid isn't as smart. This kid here is good looking. This kid here isn't. So comparing people comes on very strong once we get beyond egocentrism, and the elementary school kids are likely to compare every kid in the class. And of course, school teaches us to compare, doesn't it? We have A's, we have B's, we have C's, but inherently we're built to compare people. With sports and with everything else, we bond together in groups. So here's a group of kids, maybe on the same team. That's our team. And the other team is the enemy. Group behavior comes on, which is the essence of being human in elementary school. We're tribal, basically. So the good thing is that if you work, you can get competent. That's great. This guy, the harder I work, the more I'm going to be able to do things. And the key to being successful is working. The bad news is feeling that you're not successful or feeling inferior. You have a group of the kids who are popular, and then you have a group of the kids who are not popular. You have a group of the kids who are rich. You have the kids who are not rich. Competition and status, I'm not telling you anything you didn't know, is built in to our human genome and comes on naturally once we understand that we are not the center of the universe. And another result, bad result, is bullying. Bullying really begins to reach its peak in middle school and pre-adolescence, but it really becomes much more common in late elementary school, let's say about 9 or 10. Bullying basically is a group phenomenon. So there's an in group and there's an out group. And there's a bully, this would be the guy. Let's get together and and here's the person we don't like. And we're going to target this person. And the bully is going to get very popular by doing that, unfortunately, because it feeds on our idea we have the status and we can really stick it to the people who don't have the status. You can bully by yourself, but bullies basically need an audience to say, yeah, let's do that, guy. And our group is great and the out group is bad. Adulthood sets in late elementary school for the good and for the bad. All those properties of human beings. So are bullies unpopular? Well, actually, bullies can be very popular if they're able to bond the group together, get the group to fight against the out group or the group that isn't as good. Bullies can be very socially skilled. Are they emotionally disturbed? I don't think so, really. If they're good at bullying, they're being successful. Are males more likely to bully than females? Now, everybody in this audience, there is one is going to say, no, of course, women bully all the time. But the way we bully, what we do is a thing called relational aggression, where I don't like this person. Can we get rid of it? No, because basically it's built into being human. I mean, you can stand up. If everybody in the group stands up to a bully, you can get rid of it. But it is really something that's going to keep cropping up because that's how we're built as human beings. The good side of bullying, Belsky, you crazy? Is there anything good about being bullied? And I'm going to say that at the same time as everything that's bad about being human crops up in elementary school, you can also learn a thing called morality. Early childhood is a Garden of Eden where you feel you're wonderful in the center of the universe. And when you grow up, you understand you're just a person. And the Bible put it best. If Adam had remained in the Garden of Eden, all things which were created would have remained the same state of innocence, having no joy, for they knew no misery, doing no good, for they knew no sin. Really, what the Bible's telling us is theory of mind and actually understanding the truth about life is what propelled us to be moral. So with this guy, and I have an example I'm going to end with, he's been bullied, and he may say to himself, I know how that feels, and I'm going to devote my life maybe to social justice. Who knows what it could be? But the experience of having that is really teaching us to be fuller, more moral human beings. Now, I have an example, maybe you can think of one, of something that changed my life in 4th grade. When I bullied the teacher, I wrote a note and everybody was laughing. And I said, our teacher is ugly. He's bald. And, that got us together. I got a lot of mileage from that, even though basically I don't like that stuff. Well, I'll tell you why. Because the teacher got the note and I was so humiliated. And I said to myself, I remember that vividly. I'm never going to do that stuff again. Being bullied or being a bully can really teach you what it is to be a more mature person. And that all begins to come on when we leave the Garden of Eden and reach elementary school. And if you like this lecture, you can join me at my website, Belsky Being Human, as I explain what scientists know about every aspect of human life, because I've been writing textbooks for 50 years. Next episode is adolescence, and we're going to talk all about puberty, and we're going to talk about the adolescent mind. Belsky Lecture 3 of Growing Up.